Hey, Zach.
To be honest with you, right? That beat is so cool, right? I mean, like we like our own beat. Yeah, we're nodding our heads, yeah,
It's time to head back during the intro. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's really a cool beat, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
So, how are you doing?
doing good, man. Doing good. So our the short summer is over. I think can't say almost it's over. It's kind of 17 degrees outside, so it's pretty chill. We are
Hmm.
going into autumn, and the next is winter. It will be my first
Hmm.
winter in New Zealand. Yes.
Awesome. Well, I envy you because summer is just getting started in India.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So New Zealand, I think the summer is really short, especially Wellington, right? It's called windy Wellington, always very windy. You have no idea how windy is. It's really really awesome. Yeah. So how
Awesome.
is everything with you?
Doing amazing. So, yeah. I've been talking about a lot of AWS stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
even uh, this month, Community Day at Hyderabad, I'll be speaking about Eventbridge. So yeah, super
Oh,
excited.
nice, nice, super excited. So yeah, definitely everyone should. You guys going live or just only in person?
It's in person.
In person, okay. So anyone around Hyderabad can join with you, right?
Correct.
Nice. So this month, March AWS Wellington Meetup chapter. So I'll be talking about AWS Code Catalyst and planning to do a
Ah,
demo as well. Yes, and yep. So the pretty thing is, it's going to be hosted in our Office Zero. So last month also we managed to host it there. Yep, cool.
awesome. So yeah, you've been talking about Code Catalyst for a while, right? Like
Yeah,
since the time it's been announced.
yeah. I told you, right, that's one of my favorite thing. Um, at the keynote and reinvent, yeah, it's really awesome, man. Like, but it need um, improvements and stuff. But yes, because recently I did a podcast with Jonas, another awesome community builder from Germany. Yeah, so this one I'll planning to do more demo and kind of hand something.
Awesome.
But we are not here today about talk about Code Catalyst. We are going to talk about serverless.
Yes. So
Yeah,
serverless. Before we get into what's new in serverless, right?
yeah,
Since reinvent, there's been a lot of things happening in serverless, especially during reinvent. There were announcements and new services like Application Composer and all being introduced.
yeah.
Uh, but after that, also there's been some amazing announcements. That's what we'll be looking into this time. And
Yes.
let me share. Awesome. Well, so Zach, you've been working with S3, I believe. That's one of the commonly used services. So one thing around that is that now all the objects that go into S3 are being encrypted by default. Well, before we had to go enable a bucket level property to tell that, hey, all my objects in this bucket are going to be encrypted. But now, by default, whether we do it or not, all the objects are being encrypted. So how amazing is that? Because you don't have to worry about ensuring certain security standpoint to set the standards where everything is being managed by AWS, and all these are being ensured that your S3 objects are secure, right? Any thoughts on this?
So is this going to be like the default encryption, like the S3 encryption, or like we can enable something
So
like the KMS encryption as well, our own keys or something?
that is possible. Well, by default, it is S3 encryption that is there, and there's option to even use a customer key or a KMS based encryption as well. So yeah.
So now it's default, like everything is encrypted, like on rest, any
Yes.
object. So that's really good, man, because if you're working in the enterprise level or even the SMB level, right? For your compliances, the encryption is one of the key things as well for your data. Yeah. So I think this is a pretty good move by Amazon because everything is encrypted as default.
Correct. So before we had to ensure that our infrastructure as code is defining a property, telling that whenever we are creating a S3 bucket, we are ensuring it has the default encryption set as true, right? Now we don't have to do that because the newly creating buckets automatically have all of these things set to true, and all the objects are being secure by default. So yeah. This gets me to a point where, as DevOps, right, you come from a DevOps background, and when you're talking about security, and you say that these services provide security by default, how, uh, what is the level of excitement when you hear it?
Uh,
Because for serverless
yeah.
folks, uh, uh, well, we focus more on provisioning the services or provisioning the resources and doing it. But when we do it, it's like application as using our infrastructure as code, and it's just a single line that's been reduced for us. But for DevOps, it's a lot more, right?
Yeah. I think it's more into DevSecOps, I would say, because
Mm-hmm.
the same thing like another pillar, right? So we have something called, securing your pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
Security in the pipeline, right? Security in the pipeline
Okay.
means you add something like SaaS dash scannings, and so
Mm-hmm.
many other automation security scans, right? But securing a
Mm-hmm.
pipeline is very important, right? So many places that we can use S3 bucket, right? Because you can store your artifacts, you can store your any other manifests or anything, right? Or your any other resources inside it because it's object storage. So um, I think this is a good move because it's one of the thing that you want to, if you want to secure your pipeline, you don't have to worry now because I mean, like, you have to be worried, but by its default it's now encrypted, so you don't have to worry about this specific thing, I would say, because it's already encrypted, so you can relieve. So because if you have like 10 things to check, so now you have to worry about 9 things because this one is done already.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, the next thing is about Lambda functions. And when you're working with Lambda functions and using SQS as event source, right? There could be in a very production environment, there's a lot of messages that's being posted on your SQS that triggers your Lambda function. And when that happens, most of the times Lambda hits a concurrency limit, and often the workaround or the hack to ensure that you don't hit a concurrency limit is to ensure you have a reserved concurrency set on your Lambda functions. Uh, well, what happens in the background is that Lambda functions polls to check each and every message, each and every SQS queue that has been added as a event triggerer if there's a new message or not, right? So even the instance that is polling and checking is using some sort of a computation resource. But now what happens is that SQS by default says there's a limit of events that I could post to a Lambda function. And if it exceeds, it rests for a while and puts it to DLQ, and from the DLQ, you could retry it. But what happens is that you don't have to manually go set your Lambda functions with concurrency limits. Well, this is a huge win because often at times you don't know you're using a lot of Lambda functions in a production level serverless application, right? And you have instances where Lambda function is using SQS as a trigger. There's a lot of events being posted from different services, different, say for example, Event Bridge, it posted to SQS, and from SQS you are invoking a Lambda function. There's a whole multitude of events that's being posted, and when this is happening, it's obvious that you'll hit a concurrency limit because the multitude of events you would have to scale to, and given the constraints about the concurrency limits that we have in our AWS accounts, you will eventually hit the concurrency limit. Now you don't have to worry about it by telling that, hey, I could set a specific amount of events that could be posted to Lambda functions, and that is so amazing, right?
So one thing about this, Zach, I think when it comes to Lambda, right, everyone is talking about, okay, the concurrency limits and stuff so on, right?
Mhm.
So correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not much that into serverless stuff, like especially Lambda, because
Mhm.
I'm more into containers, I would say. EK is yes.
Cool.
So I know there's a limit that currently, if I'm not wrong, it's like 1,000, right? The limit
Correct.
is.
Yeah,
Yes,
1,000 is a soft limit. Again, you could
you can
raise
increase it.
support.
Hmm.
Yeah, but that's a case to by cases that even the limit
Yeah, yeah.
raise happens. So yeah.
Yes, yes. Cool. Let's go to the next one.
So, okay. So when you're using Lambda functions again, you're using different runtimes, be it Node or Python or any other runtimes. And often at times there are these runtime updates, which are very critical. So say, for example, Node 16 has a specific security issue that's been fixed in Node 18. You have to go and update all your Lambda functions to Node 18. That's a tedious process, right? Even though you're updating your infrastructure as code, a template YAML telling that, hey, all these runtimes have to be updated, you need to go and test your Lambda functions if everything is working or not, correct? Because often at times, there could be some minor things that might get deprecated from the previous version, and you might have to again go update your Lambda functions. So what happens now is that there are different ways that you could do this. If you know for a fact that this Lambda function doesn't have these kind of dependencies, and you could use something like an auto update or a synchronized update for runtimes, where AWS, whenever the update happens on the AWS end, AWS ensures that all your Lambda function code is being migrated to a newer runtime version. So you don't have to go through the uh, migrations stage where you're telling that, hey, I'm going to sit and update all my Lambda functions. AWS does it for you. So again, it's reducing your time to migrate or maintain your complete applications. There are different options in this where one is auto, which I just spoke about. The other one is whenever you do a function update. So say, for example, you have uh, tens and tens of Lambda functions, and some of them might not need immediate updates. Some of them you go and whenever the function code update happens, that's when you want to check if a runtime update is available and move it to a newer runtime, right? So when this kind of scenarios are there, you could even choose a function update kind of a mode where these updates will check if the first one automatically moves all of your Lambda function code to a newer version. But this specific says if a Lambda function is set to update mode only whenever the function has been updated to the latest code, that is when it checks if there's a runtime version available and then migrates it. There's even an option available where you set, hey, I want to do it manually, where you specify a specific on of a runtime, and that is when it updates it or migrates to a newer runtime. Yeah. Any thoughts on this? Because again, I know that it is a big win in terms of how your
Yeah,
CI/CD pipelines are updated, right? So, yeah.
yeah.
Any thoughts on this, Zach?
No, no. We can go to the next one.
Okay. Huh. So Lambda functions, we could even do asynchronous invocations. And when you're doing a lot of these asynchronous invocations, be it from various triggers, uh, at the moment, prior to this announcement, we didn't have metrics to check, hey, if my Lambda function is receiving these events or not. Today, CloudWatch supports these metrics with three different events, that is specifically async events received, async event age, async events dropped. So received is basically whenever there's newer events put to your queue for Lambda function invocation, it specifies the total number of these events that are received. And whenever the Lambda function is being received and until the invocation happens. That is the event age metrics that gives you a total number of what's the age of these events that are there in the queue. And whenever there's some errors and you don't have it, or you do have something like a failover or a DLQ set to your Lambda functions, uh, all of these events get dropped at the specific time, right? If there's something goes wrong, all of these events do get dropped. And you would want to get a metric about, hey, how many Lambda events am I dropping off or have been dropped because of whatever reasons that are there. So whenever these events have been pushed to your DLQ or your failovers, that you have those events or you have that metrics telling that X number of events have been dropped or there were some errors in my Lambda function. But if you don't have them configured, you don't have any data in terms of Lambda function errored, but there's some of my events dropped, some of my events uh, worked as expected, right? So with these new CloudWatch metrics, all of that is possible. So of course, in Lambda function is being used widely with asynchronous invocations, given that it integrates well with different event sources, be it SQS or step functions or various other things. When Lambda function invokes all of these things, all of this happens in an asynchronous way. We didn't have metrics to look into the execution of what's happening in our Lambda functions. Today, with CloudWatch metrics, all of that is possible. So while we were speaking about the previous announcements in terms of how we are improvising our standard of code or standard of our application codes with Lambda function, we are even looking into the observability pillar in terms of how better could we improve our Lambda functions. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of observability as well because it's a one of the biggest pillar for the DevOps as well. So this is really awesome because those are like async invocations, right? So now you can get the numbers like how many. You said there are three metrics, right? So especially the drop one, I think I'm very interested in the drop one. So I could see how many events that I have dropped in the dashboard. So I'm a big fan of dashboards.
Awesome. Yeah, so if somebody is using just CloudWatch for their metrics or observability, this helps a lot.
And I'm a big fan of. I'm not related to this, but I think part of related to that this one. But I'm a big fan of the login side and the query part of that. Like if you're using that, I don't see like you have to use if you're into AWS ecosystem, right? Using CloudWatch, I don't think you didn't need to go for another third party log, you know, logging application. So I don't want to say those vendor names, but yeah, you know what I'm trying to say, right? Yeah. So
Yes, yes.
yeah, in login side is really really awesome. You can query it. Yeah.
Yep, and the very fact that all these events from your CloudWatch, you could archive them in S3 or anything after a specific retention period, helps you to even analyze things at a later point of time. Well, with vendors, third-party vendors, you would have an additional cost in terms of how you do all of these. But in AWS, it's the configuration that you're very familiar with, right?
Yeah, there are so many things. I don't want to keep grab here, but another one, I can say, CloudWatch log streams are there. If you want to, you can. If you want to stream your logs to Kinesis, so even for
Genesis, right?
even your own ELK stack, to your Elasticsearch. Yeah, there are so many options.
Yep.
I think, yeah, we'll go to the next one. Otherwise, we'll be talking about all the CloudWatch awesome stuff.
Okay. So, have you used AWS SAM CLI? I am a big fan, big user of AWS SAM, but have you used it?
If I ask you a question, are you a big fan of EKCTL command, like tool? So yeah, either way. Yeah. So, no, Sam. To be honest, no, I'm not using Sam in the day to day at the moment. But yes, for my testing stuff, I have used it, but not in the day to day use cases. Right? Yeah.
Right. So when we speak about these SAP templates, right, we can define whatever outputs that we want to get, like things like API endpoints or arms of different Lambda functions or whatever resources that are there. You would want to get all of these outputs. And what happens is that whenever we deploy, when the deployment is successful, is when we get an output. But now there's a new command which will help you get all of your outputs that is specifically telling that what are different endpoints, what are different resources, if there's a different stack and multi-stacks available, all of those details with SAM list. So whenever you have your application already deployed, you're making some changes, you're trying to figure things out during the development phase, this comes very handy when in terms of even in my previous roles, right, where I used to do a lot of these full stack development. I used to use SAM where I have my backend structure there available. And I used to start building all the APIs and whatever the needed things are there in my SAM. And I used to use different outputs. And whenever I'm using these outputs, I used to either take all these endpoints, put it in the notepad just for my reference in terms of whenever I'm trying to invoke them from a front end or things like that, right? But now it's SAM list. I don't have to go and ensure all my endpoints are in one place to get things very handy. Yeah.
I would love to give it a try. Why not? And if you promise me you're going to try the EKCTL.
Yes. So let's have this. Okay, you try SAM first, and then we go into the case.
Cool, man. Cool. That's awesome. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing
Oh,
is that I'm always a big fan of step functions, where the step functions started using SDK integrations, if I remember correctly, in reInvent 21, where they had started announcing, telling that, hey, we have a couple of services, serverless services, which support SDK integrations. And since then till now, I've been seeing that newer services, newer API actions have been included almost every now and then, right? Because today, if you see step functions, whatever business logic that you have, uh, if it doesn't require additional computation or additional things in terms of you are trying to do some data processing and stuff like that, if you don't have that complex business logic, you could use step functions to solve it. So most of my applications that I've built after this announcement mostly includes my step functions that is doing all of the backend activities. So I'm super excited to say that, hey, there are new services that's been added, things like EMR serverless. Of course, I've tried EMR serverless, but I've not really used it in an application or anything. But knowing the very fact that EMS is being supported as a SDK integration on step functions is super amazing. And not just EMR, but there's clean rooms, Fleetwise, all of these being included. So I could see for a fact that if you're somebody who's building a use case on serverless or for general on AWS, you could use step functions to either automate different tasks or power different things in terms of be it a backend service or an ETL job or a task. Say, for example, even I know for a use case that where I had too many Cloud9 instances, and at one point I wanted to delete all of them because, again, it's using EC2. I'm not a big fan of EC2. What happened is I could use
sorry.
step
What? What? What?
functions.
What is EC2?
Yeah, what is EC2, right? Is so I remember using step functions back then to check if my Cloud9 instances are active or not. If it's not active, probably delete it and go on. Because I use Cloud9 mostly if I'm trying to try out different things, and uh, probably all my runtimes are there, and my code is in GitHub already, so I don't need an instance running always, and the data there is not really much of a critical data. So probably things like that could be used by step functions, where you could automate all of these instances to be deleted or put to a terminated state. So
Um,
step functions growing is
yes.
super
Yes.
amazing.
I think I will share one of the awesome thing I've seen that
Hmm.
we have multiple pods and our team is a huge team. So, but we have
Okay.
multiple pods. So this one of the pods, uh, they have implemented step functions to for the AMI baking. Every month, and every security patchings. Uh,
Hmm.
Windows, Microsoft, they have something called Patch Tuesday. They
Okay.
release their patches on every month, second Tuesday night, if I'm not wrong, US time. There's something called Patch
Oh.
Tuesday.
Okay.
So uh, something like that, when patch are releases, right? We
Hmm.
need to patch the AMIs. So this step function they have implemented to execute multiple team city jobs. So
Hmm.
imagine, right, you have multiple team city jobs, and you have to check one by one, and they implement multiple functions. For example, if you have 10 jobs, so it will continuously, accordingly, 1 2 3 4, like, it will execute. And if it's
Hmm.
success, if the AMI baked and it's built success and could the AMI, you will get a notification to your Slack. And when you click that, it will go to the specific function. You can see what went wrong and why it's failed. And it's super awesome. So that my colleague, he recently joined to AWS Community Builder program as well. That's super awesome. And he did a session about this last month, AWS meetup, Wellington meetup group in Wellington. So it's amazing, man. Like, it's fully automated using step
Hmm.
functions, multiple team city jobs. So like you mentioned, yeah, we have 35 services here, including MR, but step function is awesome. It out of the box, you can think what you're going to do. Yeah.
Kitty. And the very fact about almost every service on AWS has been supported on step functions is super amazing. Well, the other part is Appsync. So when you want to build GraphQL based APIs in the serverless ecosystem, you would go for Appsync, where the one of the database choices that you have, and the VTL based integrations, whatever is possible on Appsync, is with DynamoDB. And when you're using that, most of the times what we have to do is the VTL or the JS based VTL, the resolvers that are there use different scan or queries or DynamoDB. And when we were doing this, we used to get the complete item itself, and we could not use things like projection expressions. So DynamoDB with expressions is very powerful because you're only requesting the data, whatever you're wanting to look at, or the attributes that you want to monitor is what you want to retrieve, right? Because, say, for example, in the traditional SQL system, if you wanted to get something like an email, you would say select email from uh, the table name, right? With DynamoDB, it's possible, but you could use something like projection expressions. And previously, AppSync didn't support it, so you used to get the complete item, and based on your schema, only the email could be returned, or things like that. There used to be data transfer between DynamoDB and AppSync with the whole item itself. Today, you're just getting whatever you need in terms of the protection expressions. This is a huge one because in production, when you're using AppSync and there's significantly large data that's being transferred, right? Using protection expressions, you only get whatever items are needed. And based on your schema, you most of the times have data that's specific to different models and different schema objects. When you're requesting for projection expressions, you could use those attributes or the items that are there in that specific schema and use them, so that you don't need the complete item itself. So yeah, have you
Wow.
used AppSync and
No,
DynamoDB?
no. I mean, like, I tested for, like, I test all the AWS tools, but not like you in production level. Yeah, but I know it's a super awesome tool. Again, I'm going to containers.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I believe
But we are
that's.
friends. No, no, wo, no, wo. We are friends.
Well, yes, containers and serverless could be the same, could
Yeah.
coexist at the same point.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, right? We are friends. Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. I believe that's probably the
Yeah.
top of the things in terms of what's new in serverless.
Yeah, that was really, really awesome. And I think my favorite one today, I would say there's three encryption. Like,
Hmm?
they're going to set that as by default. So that would be really nice because you see, right, recently so many cases that data breaches and stuff. And yeah, I think that's going to save a lot of time, engineering effort, and money as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think,
Well, my
yeah,
take is
sorry.
there's no favorite one as such, but probably if I have to rank and give a number, I'd probably go with step functions first and then
Yeah,
S3.
totally, Zach. Yeah, obviously, you should. I mean, if not, that will be the problem. Yeah, he should be. Cool. So, as we planned we decided to keep our session for like less than 30 minutes, or let's try to be less than 40, but we are not going to do more like 1 hour, like too long session. So, I think we did a good job today. It was a quick one, but so many knowledge, like uh, tons of knowledge we try to give you through today's session, and hope to see you soon with another session, maybe a demo, right? Who knows?
Yeah, you never know what's cooking, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, me and Zach always this session supposed to we're supposed to go live like 2 weeks ago, maybe. The first week I couldn't make it because I had some my personal stuff, and last week we both had some personal stuff, and this week we both okay to do it. Yeah, so uh, we promise you guys, we'll come back again on another Sunday or Saturday, maybe a weekday. You may never know. So, but definitely we are not going to miss you every month. We are trying to do at least two per month, but we don't want to give you the same thing, like keep boring stuff. But it's good to have something much better at least once a month. Right? Something like this. What we did today. Yeah, cool.
Yep.
Anything else?
Well,
We say goodbye to Sunday. Okay, Sunday night for me. It's all 9:30. I think you have. I think it's for you. It's 2 o'clock.
yep, 2 p.m. So I have the rest of the day, rest of half a Sunday.
Yeah, I think for me it's done. Yeah.
Well, Monday is calling you.
Then
Awesome,
see you
Zach.
all
So,
in another session, right? Hopefully end of this month, because this one maybe we went live on March, but this supposed to be a February one.
Fed
So
one, yes.
if Feb one, but yeah, we'll see you maybe end of this month. Yeah.
Yep. So see you all. Bye bye.
Bye bye.